Did it just disconnect? Hello? Did it just disconnect?
Yeah.
Come back again. It started again.
Yeah, just 2 minutes.
Okay, perfect. I think there must be some issue. Yeah, but that's okay. Please. Apologies, we are facing some technical issues. So I think Mrs. Vidhya Iyengar should be back. Thank you everyone for rejoining so fast. Can we once again have a very quick hands up if my voice and my video is audible and seen to everybody? Okay, perfect. I request everyone to please keep their video and their microphones on mute so that we can continue to have a seamless webinar of sorts. The reason for the disconnect, I do not know, I'm just taking a wild guess, is because I think Zoom is getting updated on every system phase wise. So maybe that's the reason why. It happened in one of the other webinars where there were some eminent judges who were also speaking. But thankfully all the participants were very quick to come back once again. So we will just wait for ma'am to come in.
Hello. Can
So
everybody
sorry,
hear me?
ma'am. I think
I'm so sorry. Something went wrong. I don't understand.
No problem.
So
It's
anyway.
because of the update that Zoom is happening. No problem. Please continue.
Sure. Yeah. So I was discussing some of the examples. So how like 1 second.
विद्या इसको expand कर दो PPT को.
What?
PPT को पूरे पेज पे कर दो ना. स्लाइड मोड में ले आओ ना इसको, प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में. नीचे ये जो है ना आपका जो बॉटम
press F5
करके इसको प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में ले आओ ना.
Ma'am, just press F5.
I did that. It's the slide you can see, right?
नहीं इसमें
But you can see the slide. Yeah.
स्लाइड फाइंडर तो आता नहीं है ना पूरे वाले में. You can
okay,
go
anyways, we can. I think we can share the slides after we finish off in case somebody wants.
चलो आगे चलते हैं.
Yeah, let's go ahead with it. So any type of a suggestive remarks, any type of a body shaming, offensive and comments and jokes, inappropriate questions, suggestions, remarks about a person's sex life, displaying sexiest or other offensive pictures, posters, MMS, SMS, WhatsApp, emails, intimidation, threats, blackmail around sexual favors, threats, intimidation, retaliation against an employee who speaks up about the unwelcome behavior, welcome social invitation with sexual overtones. So all these things and unwelcome sexual advances. These are the examples of various examples wherein, like for example, when we talk about the body shaming, it's very common that people are into it. And they they very easily, like as I said, when I went to the workshops, I understood that in the organizations, people have this habit of commenting something on somebody in a very casual manner. But if it hurts and it creates an impact on that person, this is a part of sexual harassment, which we all need to understand. uh, let's first understand what is also understand what is workplace, what are the workplace are coming into this particular POSH Act. All government organizations, NGOs, house, it is also included in a household, nursing home, corporations, companies, education institution, farms, sports activities, hospitals, service providers, cooperative societies. So it involves every parameters when it comes to for a sexual harassment. So when, like for example, households and cooperative societies, we may not have a complaint, criminal internal complaint committee. So those type of complaints can be addressed to local committee. But the society has to address these issues when it comes to society. Hospital has to address this issue, and non-compliance of this is taken as a there are repercussions to the organizations. Let's understand who is an employer. uh, Workplace of government and local bodies, private workplace, a dwelling house, so it also involves residents, head or officer specified, person responsible for management, supervision and control, person who employs or benefit from the employment. So this also involves housemates. Now let's understand what is forms of sexual harassment. There are two types in general defined under the Act. One is quid pro quo. Like those who are lawyers, they know that in the contract we talk about something in return. So when there is a quid pro quo element, that is something is expected out of that employee who has been, given to understand that she will be promoted or she will be given a preferential treatment if she allows those type of sexual advances, then this will be treated as sexual harassment. Then creating an hostile environment, environment of intimidating, being offensive, not giving them work, not giving the work as per their profile, demotivating them, demoting them. All this will involve this is also part of sexual harassment, and this can be taken to the complaint committee. So the Delhi High Court in the year 2010, after this only it was made sure that every organization should have CIC. That is the complaint committee, internal complaint committee, to make sure every complaint is addressed. So there is an annual returns to be filed with the a DO, the district officer, to make sure that those complaints are being received, addressed, and resolved, and the report is being filed within the stipulated time period. In 2010, the Delhi High Court endorsed the view that sexual harassment is a subjective experience, and for that reason held that we therefore prefer to analyze harassment from the complainant's perspective. So as I say, this is from the point of view of complainant. What we as a general person may not feel a sexual harassment may have created a impact on the person who has went through this and is under trauma. So this is because we have to make sure that these type of harassments to be stopped, and there is no such incidents of suicide or a mental trauma or a depression caused on caused on some employee and they quit. A complete understanding of the complainant's view requires an analysis of the different perspective of men and women, conduct that many men consider unobjectionable may offend some women, many women. Men tend to view some forms of sexual harassment as harmful social interaction to which only oversensitive women would object. The characteristically male view depicts sexual harassment as comparatively harmless amusement. Men who are rarely victims of sexual assault may view sexual conduct in a vacuum without a full appreciation of a social setting on the underlying threat of violence that a woman may perceive. So Delhi High Court has clearly said that what men would perceive about a sexual harassment may be completely different from a woman's perspective. So this is a subjective thing, and especially POSH is only for women. So it is to be seen that what is the complainant perspective and why is she here and what is the impact caused on her for understanding the definition. and it has to be not seen from a very limited scope of a person who is analyzing the case. This is a case of Dr. Punita Sodhi versus Union of India, and the judgment was given on 9th of September 2010 by Delhi High Court. So after this POSH Act came into existence on 22nd April 2013, there were a lot of amendments which happened in the Criminal Amendment Act. It was also made sure that it is made clear that all these type of lewd jokes, inappropriate comments, voyeurism, stalking, leering would be taken with the criminal consequences and will be punished under the IPC, Indian Penal Code. So to make sure that with women, because women don't come up with those type of complaints, so this was amendment which had taken place in the Criminal Law Amendment Act in 2013. Yeah, so lewd jokes, inappropriate comments, etc., are dismissed as normal, with women being hesitant to initiate actions due to apprehensive being they'll be disbelieved or ridiculed. So it is very clear that most of the times women don't come up with a complaint because they think that it would be, taken as like she's creating a drama, she's come up with a false complaint, and every small thing without, despite of before it is being addressed, is ridiculed. So this particular criminal amendment was a deterrent to such type of a behavior. Now let us see what IPC has an inclusion of with respect to the provision of POSH. In addition to POSH, we have section 354, which is about outraging the modesty of a woman. 354A is about sexual harassment by men. 354B is about assault or use of criminal force to women with the intent to disrobe her. 354C is about voyeurism. 354D is about stalking, leering, ogling, lewd remarks, gestures. 509 is about use word, gesture, or act intended to insult the modesty of a woman. So in addition to POSH, and women can also lodge an FIR under IPC. Now about industrial standing employment orders. These rules were in existence even before, because women are not in workforce now. They've been in workforce since the 19th century. Now the only problem is the woman initially was in the workforce of a lower strata, and now they have come up widely, and the woman participation, economic participation, has increased a lot. So these standing orders talk about acts of misconduct under service manual. So I think everybody is aware of, there is a service manual in all organization. So it is made mandate that all the service manual should talk about sexual harassment will be taken as a deterrent and will lead to consequences. Then about use of foul language, acts of indecency, and other acts which as per the organization would lead to misconduct and further termination or necessary actions. Now, also, I would like to say here that UGC in the year 2015, the University Grant Commission has come with a lot of changes wherein they have involved the sexual harassment in the college campus and to address an issue, and they have also created the internal complaint committee, and all these are addressed. The only difference between POSH and UGC is UGC is gender neutral, wherein both the students, male and female, both can complain, and their complaints are taken equally into consideration, wherein in POSH it is about female because of the statistics available. Right now, when we talk about the sexual harassment, there are a lot of cases with respect to female than the male. So based on that, based on these cases, the legislation has POSH Act. So if the statistics with male getting into sexual harassment comes, then there is a possibility that there may be an amendment. But we are not very sure as of now. Okay, there are two types of committees. One is the internal committee, one is an external committee. The internal committee is a mandate for all organization who has more than 10 employees. And the local committee, not the local committee is in every district. And there is a district officer assigned to that local committee, and this has been organized by the government. And they have to take care of all the complaint wherein the workforce in any organization is less than 10, which is a case of a domestic workers. And most important, when the case pertains to a management or an employer, the local committee comes into picture. Then the case cannot be handled by the internal committee. Yeah. So interim measures which is available for a person who has complained under the uh, 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 POSH Act. While a complaint is pending inquiry, a complaint can make a written request for transfer or transfer of respondent for a leave up to 3 months, and she can also request uh, committee to restrain the respondent from reporting on her workplace or writing her confidential report or supervising her academic activities in case she is at education institution. So these are the interim measures which is given by the act. Even in the absence of such request, the complaint committee must take coercive action. It is essential to take these action in order to prevent potential ongoing sexual harassment. So as you see, there can be transfer. She can ask for a paid leave. Her medical expenses has to be taken care by the organization if it is a case of sexual assault. Now, as far as the complaint is concerned, the victim can personally come and file a complaint. Her relative can file a complaint in case it is a case of a death, a suicide, or a grievous hurt and subsequent death. A person who has been impacted by the victim can also make a complaint to the POSH committee. It also involves, let's say, for example, if the person is mentally disabled, in such situation, the any particular relative can file a hair can file a complaint. Legal hair can file a complaint. I hope I'm not going very fast. Okay. So let's discuss about the rights of the complainant and the respondent. As per law, everybody requires a fair trial. So the most important thing is an unbiased trial for both the parties. For a complainant specifically to have an empathetic attitude, because we should not have a pre-notions. The complaint committee should not have a pre-notions about the victim and about her complaint. It should completely be based on the facts and circumstances of the case. Then a copy of statement and evidences has to be exchanged between the parties in a fair way. If the victim wants to lodge for an FIR, the organization must help in getting the FIR lodged in time. And in case of a fear of intimidation from respondent, as I said, the interim measures of her transfer, paid leave, all these should be taken care by the organization. And the right to appeal. In case she is not satisfied with the report of a complaint committee, she should be having a right to appeal. So the speaking or the standing order should allow her to appeal to the a court. And in case of a respondent also, he should be having a non-biased fair trial. The evidence should be exchanged with both the parties. You should know who are the witnesses. You should be allowed to cross-examine. Now here the cross-examination is as the part of questionnaires, which generally happens with the courts like consumer court and all, wherein there is not open cross-examination. The questionnaires are being exchanged and they have to give an answer in affidavit. And one more important thing is in case of a POSH, there is no legal help or an advocate can be hired. In this particular case, specifically before the complaint committee, they should appear in person. So if the person is mentally disturbed or having some medical problems, a relative can accompany, but not to the trial. They can be a part to accompany them to the organization, but not to the trial. So one more thing is, it is being said by the POSH that they should also effort towards conciliation. I'm sure I don't have to define what is conciliation, but effort to mediate between, to convince between the party to end before it going to a litigation or a trial. So if the parties, let's say for example, complainant is okay with a apology letter or written apology or some type of a settlement, then the POSH committee should look forward for a conciliation between the parties. But monetary terms should not be a part of conciliation. Is a mandate for the initial conciliation to take place. And the recommendation which has to be given by the POSH is they can, So before I talk about recommendation, the authority of a internal committee is that of a civil court. So when it comes to sending of a summons to the respondent, when it comes to the evidence part of it, or when it comes to running of a trial, they have they have to run through the procedures of civil court, and they can send recommendation and report to the DO. and a copy of it to be given to the employee, so the complainant, also to the respondent. So some of the penalties which they can recommend is disciplinary action against the respondent, including written apology, reprimand, warning, censure, withholding his promotion, pay rise, increment, termination, community service, and also some type of a monetary compensation as a final standing orders to the victim from the respondent, and any additional recommendation they can give. Now about the most important thing is in the POSH committee they have made institution and organization responsible compared to the uh, uh, what you call individual. So here the responsibility of organization comes in. So as I said, for non-compliances of having an internal committee can be a grave consequences. Like in one of the cases, the court, Madras High Court, had given a penalty damages of 1.68 crores to the employee for not having the internal complaint committee. So the prevention is better than cure. So internal committee has to be set up with all organization which has more than 10 employees, and they have to run through the workshops. They have to provide safety environment. They have to make sure that they check on the whether there is any hostile environment being created against women. They have to run through workshops for gender sensitization, formulate a widely disseminate an internal policy or charter or resolution or declaration of prohibition prevention of sexual harassment. Yeah, they declare the name and details of the internal complaint committee, provide necessary facilities, organize workshops, cause and initiate any FIR under IPC if they find the victim wants to go ahead and file an FIR, and provide assistance to the woman who choose to file a complaint. In case the woman is not in a position to write her complaint on her own, they should also assist to write the help her creating the complaint. Treat sexual harassment as a misconduct, and to decide on the punishment based on the service rules. If service rules is not in existence, then they can recommend punishments based on the recommendation discussed by me in the other slide. Prepare annual reports and submit to the DO about the closure of cases, the complaints received, the workshops conducted, who are all in the internal committee, and how the case has been handled and finished. So monitor timely submission of these reports to the internal committee by the organization. So I am through, Rajdeep. Hello.
Yeah. Okay. That was
I hope I was not
extremely.
too fast.
No,
But
absolutely
the
not.
time constraint, so I thought I'll take up
No,
before I could,
absolutely not. It was extremely educative, and I was really engrossed into the
Thank
slides,
you.
and especially the case laws that you are quoting, and it's all practical. I mean, to see it that way. So we've seen all the
So
practicality of
I'll
it.
just quote some of the things from my workshops. So like when I go to colleges and all, I take the workshops. People don't know that body shaming is a part of sexual harassment. So they say we generally call up, and we don't know the impact which has been created on the other person. So in the colleges part, when you see it is too much, and when we talk about the colored remarks, it could be even a double meaning talking. So this happens widely actually without being knowing that there is a law in existence which actually punishes the person who does that. So our job as a lawyers, I believe, is to make sure that we educate and make the people aware at the home front, at the college front, at the workforce, that all these things can create hindrance for somebody's economic growth, sustainability, and self-reliance, because our pre-PM is also on self-reliance. So I'm talking this word and again that we have to make sure that our generations have self-reliance when it comes to economic independence and also on the household. So we should make the gender equality as a main important ingredients for our citizens.
Absolutely. And of course, before I touch upon the numerous questions that I'm getting, which of course, which we had discussed and which we had predicted, uh,
Okay.
before we touch upon that, a very you've touched a very an interesting word. You said something about conciliation. Can we know more about what is conciliation and how it
So
actually helps in this topic of us?
So, in what happens here is, in case the victim is ready for conciliation, because it's most important is a consent to be there for conciliation. The organization can keep a conciliation, meeting between the respondent and the victim, and if the victim is okay for certain terms, like it could be written apology or some type of a counseling for the respondent, and the respondent understands his mistake. The most important part here is the respondent has to understand. But if the respondent is not ready for a conciliation, he doesn't agree it to be a mistake. Like as I said, the sensitivity of a the subject is itself very different between men and women. So if he doesn't find that this was actually a sexual harassment, like for example, I'll take one more case with you. When I was doing a workshop with this, there was this case, and most of us could not believe that this could be a sexual harassment. A guy proposed to a girl, and then he proposed, no, sorry, a guy and a girl were just friendly. They used to talk over nights and all, like any friends. And this guy presumed it to be a relationship and went ahead and gone and told everybody about the relationship without even asking her. And then she filed a complaint against the internal committee for sexual harassment. So when I discussed, most of the people felt, what is a big deal, why there should be a sexual harassment case. So it is difficult for people to understand what is consent. A person who is not even being approached and asked whether there is a liking, whether she want to be a part of relationship and all, and the person goes and uploads in the social status and goes and tells everybody, is actually disreputing her what do you call respect in the in a place where she's working. So this could be a part of sexual harassment. Very clearly it was mentioned there, which most of us, when we were in training, we were like, okay, this could be a big deal, but this happens generally. When you see, this happens very general, very normally, that people go and start propagating things which may actually not be truth, and they don't understand about the legal consequences.
Right. I mean, it is very terrifying to note. And as you said, that a lot of education is actually required.
True, true,
And
true, true.
okay, so I with that, I will restrain myself from asking any further questions. I will now take on the questions that have been asked by my distinguished participants who've taken out time for today. So a very imperative question, which actually caught my eye, is spoken by one of the participants. So, so ma'am, you're saying that, okay, so now with all the companies closed down, employees are now doing something known as a work from home culture.
Yeah.
So is there any way that there's any conduct of POSH inquiry during this COVID-19 through video conferencing? Is that at all possible? Is there any
See,
provisions?
one-to-one meeting does happens when we have a video conferencing, and email also happens. We are completely on a social media right now, and Posh takes into consideration WhatsApp, email, video conferencing, and everything. So when an inquiry happens, it is all everything which involves workplace. So all these platform where the work happens
No, I'm
is
saying
a
that
part of Posh.
can an
So
inquiry happen through video conferencing?
okay. So yes, of course, why not? Because if there is a complaint on POSH, it should be addressed immediately. And when we have resources of video conferencing, it can be taken up and it can be heard. And if required, there can be a FIR also if it is a serious offense and serious case, and the victim wants to go ahead with filing of an FIR.
Okay. And is there any parameters that needs to be kept in mind whilst conducting a POSH inquiry through video conferencing?
For video conferencing, as such, as I said, we are not supposed to make judgmental stuff about the person victim. Like, we have to completely go by the facts of the case, what she has filed. So what is the content of it, whether it fits to the POSH Act, and then we can take up the complaint. Now, video conferencing as such, there is no parameters like, how the person should attend, or of course, they both the parties can appear, one after the other, because in the POSH, we make sure that both the parties don't have to meet each other, because there is a lot of hurt, there's a lot of sentiments involved, and there's a lot of, trauma to the victim. So if she doesn't want to be into the particular video conference, they can be taken one by one
Okay.
by the complaint committee. But
Right.
yes, as I said, it has to be addressed at the immediate level. So it is a must. Like, we have Domestic Violence Act also. So if there is a domestic violence and it requires an immediate attention rather than waiting for courts to reopen, police to act, lockdown to get over. We cannot allow the victim to be victimized even more.
So immediate action is sought,
Yes, is a
and
must. Is a must.
so, and in this situation, if it can be done through video conferencing, all the more better.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Another question that has come in, it says it requires your expertise to explain any different punishment that is prescribed under POSH Act and IPC. Is there any overlapping, or if there is a complaint that is filed under the
See, it
POSH
is a
Act?
two different yeah, so this is a two different provisions. One is a POSH Act. The other one is, because as I said, it is a civil law which is to be taken into consideration when we are dealing with the POSH. The whole of a inquiry, like under section 11, the complaint under section 9, everything is dealt in a civil procedure way. It's not a criminal procedure way. So the summons given to the respondent, his reply to be received, and the evidence to be taken, and witness to be conducted, it's all civil way, it's not criminal way, how the criminal procedure acts. But apart from POSH, we have IPC also. So if the victim wants to file an FIR in addition to the POSH complaint, she can, and the organization must help for that. That's the only
Okay.
change now. Is with POSH, organization duty is increased. They have to ensure that their employees are safeguarded. Their economic participation doesn't stop because of these things. The productivity doesn't stop.
That is the reason why we have the constitution of a separate committee altogether,
Yes.
which I think also involves a third person who's not part of the company, is it?
Yeah, there are two members from external members, and three members from the company itself. The chairperson can be from the company, but as I said, when the management is involved here, when the person who is being accused is an employer or a management person who who could be influencing the internal committee, because the internal committee consists of the employees. In that case, the complaint has to go to the local committee.
And
It
what sort
cannot
of,
be dealt by the internal committee.
okay, and what sort of actions can be taken by the company against this accused?
So I had explained about the recommendation part of it here. Like, I took up some of the recommendation that's a part of the penalties which could be charged by the you know internal committee on the respondent, like reprimanding his reprimanding him, or giving him demotion, or cutting his increment, salaries to be deducted and paid to the victim, or he could be terminated also if it's a serious thing and he's not ready to understand it's a mistake. Then the salary could be he could be terminated with misconduct. And in the misconduct, yeah, but very important thing in the POSH is, till the trial goes on, the complainant and the respondent identity is kept hidden. So they're not supposed to go out and propagate about it till the inquiry gets over, like what we do in the court proceedings. We don't specifically talk about that person and the details of the complaint. So this is also for the internal committee to not talk about the complaint, also for the victim and the respondent is to not talk about the complaint outside.
Right, right. So quickly, I'll go through another question. Again, a very important question in that sense. Is POSH applicable in the offices of state government or for any government offices?
I said, I had also mentioned that the workplace will also involve government organizations, every organization. I'm saying even cooperative societies. People are not even aware that the cooperative society comes under POSH. That's what I'm saying. So what we are lacking is right now awareness. So even a housemaid come under POSH who has visited your place. So leering is one such thing. Staring on a housemaid is a sexual harassment. If she wants, she can file a complaint. She may not even be aware of this particular fact. So it is a duty that the social workers and people educate them what all amounts to sexual harassment, and how they can come and make sure the complaint are being addressed.
So are you saying that there should be anti-sexual harassment committee even in the cooperative housing societies?
Well, as I said, now when you see, we cannot make a mandate when the employees are less than 10. But where you have a more than 10 employees, the act mandates to have an internal committee. But if there are less than 10, like big societies, they must have. The problem here is, people are not aware. So most of the organization now also don't have this type of an internal committee, and the
Right.
consequences of not having is, like, you can see, is big. They can be action on the employer to pay damages to the employee. Like this case of Ms. G versus ISG in Novasoft Technologies case of 2010, wherein 1.68 crores was damages. This I've got from a booklet which we were given. I have not gone through the case, but then this was the punishment for not having an internal committee. So it is not that you are given an option, you must have an internal committee. So you cannot say I'm not aware of the law.
Right.
We are lawyers, so we're not supposed to take excuse of saying that we don't know law.
Absolutely. And then we have that legal maxim, ignorantia juris non excusat.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So quickly going through another question. It says, it requests you, could you please elaborate the mandatory representative constitution members who is generally considered in the committee as per the POSH Act?
Okay, so one second. So we can have a social worker who is into women empowerment and all. We can have lawyers, we can have psychologists as an external member participating within the organization, because this requires a lot of counseling part of it, and it requires a legal consequences to be told. So like I am into the committee, being a lawyer and having an exposure towards the women centric cases. So they actually require you to be having a knowledge of this act, because when we go for a taking up the inquiry and all, it is important for us to know what is the law in existence and how the trial has to be conducted, what is the limitation periods to be taken into consideration. Like this whole particular inquiry has to be finished within 90 days and submitted to the employer and to the district officer, and they can proceed with their appeal. So all these things, the knowledge of the law and being a lawyer or a psychologist is a must when you are are into the team of that internal complaint committee.
Right, right. I'm really having a very difficult time to choose the questions. So
No, I understand, because when I do a workshop, we am bombarded with the questions and it never ends. And because we have a time constraint, so that's the reason I said,
I think
asking
no,
questions so I can get some.
I think considering the seriousness of this topic, the sensitivity of which has, I think, touched upon most of our viewers, which is the reason why which I'm
But
getting a lot of
I actually
questions.
feel that, there should be often workshops conducted in the organization.
Absolutely. But
And
I'll tell you
in
myself, I did not know that even a cooperative housing society is mandated to have a
No,
because
mandated
myself,
to have only no mandated to have only when they have more than 10 employees. Otherwise, if there is a complaint, the society has to ensure, like if there is some maid servant who's gone through that, they have to ensure that they help her around to reach the local committee.
absolutely.
And local committees are in existence in every district office.
Okay, okay, okay. A
Every
very
district office.
yeah. I think a question is asked by some sort of a, on the flip side of this entire act. It says that if the complaint is found to be malicious, what
So
does the POSH
you,
Act take
as
care of that?
we all lawyer know that if the complaint is malicious, then we can take an action and put an FIR on the complainant. Like we are all aware, as a lawyer, we are aware that when the complainant is giving a false complaint and inducing to take some action against a person who is actually otherwise victim now, because it's a malicious complaint, then an FIR can be lodged on her. We can take an action. The internal committee can take an action against her by